Hey there. Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, where we talk about navigating the adoption process and beyond. Before we get into the episode, here's a quick word from today's sponsor.
Listen up, Roadmap fans. Do you have a transracial family? Maybe you've struggled to find the right products for your child's hair and skin. You're not alone. But listen, I found your solution. If you're anything like me and care about clean, natural products without harsh chemicals, you've got to check out Sweet Peach Tree. It was founded by a white mom with a black daughter who gets it. They've created safe, effective products made for melanin rich skin and textured hair, but it's not just for them, it's for the entire family. Head to sweetpeachtree.com and use code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweetpeachtree.com. Use the code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweet Peach Tree, made with your family in mind.
Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Ellen Weber Libby, a psychotherapist, adoptive parent, and the author of The Calling to Adopt, which explores the soul searching behind adoption. If you missed part 1, we encourage you to go back and listen before diving into this conversation. Now on to part 2.
So, are there warning signs that indicate that someone might not be ready to adopt? And how do you suggest they address those before it's too late? And yeah.
Lack of openness to ourselves is the first warning sign.
Mm.
If we're not willing to be challenged about our thinking and our belief and willing to engage in a conversation about it, if we're shut down for the dialogue, then that is the beginning that says what's going on here. So I think that the resistance to have a conversation, to be challenged, is a very important warning sign. I think that once we know something about ourselves, we can then be more confident that the decision to go forward with adoption or to not go forward with adoption is on firm grounds. I worked with people with some military families after Afghanistan, and some of the men came back with serious health issues, and they were not able to be involved in a conception.
Mm.
And some of these men did not want to adopt at all. They felt that they had already lost so much in the war that not to be able to have their genes in a baby was something that they didn't want. Nor did they want their wives to necessarily carry a donor sperm for the same reasons. And some of these couples, the work that they did was just so remarkable as they struggled with the decision. Some people got to a point where they ended up deciding to adopt. Others got to the point of deciding that for them, a donor sperm was better because at least that way the father, we'll say that the partner, the man who's going to father this child, the father felt that at least he could be a part of the pregnancy and feel more engaged. He could see his wife's belly growing. He could see the sonograms, and others said, if it's not, I don't want it. So these are all profoundly personal questions that couples really and truly have to sort out. I've been involved with couples where they decided adoption wasn't right for them because an adopted child is never fully embraced in the religion of some couples, and they've decided that being involved with their family was more important than having a child, or they decided that they couldn't have a child that would not be accepted by the family.
Right.
So
That's important.
there are many ways that it can go. What is again important is communication and soul searching.
Yeah, I'd say if you know that you are, because you said something earlier about being fluid or being open or something like that. And I always tell families that we talk to, the one thing that we require if we are going to work with you through this process is that you enter it with an open heart and an open mind.
Right.
If you know you are a black and white person, like things are either black or they're white and there's no in between, adoption probably is not for you. If you are that rigid of a person and you know, well, there's no way I would ever accept an XYZ,
Right.
whatever. Things just don't work that way in adoption. There's a
Right.
lot of complexities and a lot of layers and a lot of both ands.
To your point, if somebody is going into adoption with the notion that their adoptive child is going to be just like them, is going to follow their footsteps in terms of sports, music, schooling, art, whatever it be, that's usually a warning sign, because when we adopt children, we're adopting little tiny people
Yeah.
who carry their own genetics and who are also affected by their environment.
Yes.
And as a parent, we have to accept all of what our children bring to the table.
And you also have to accept that that child was born from another mother.
Right.
And some people I have heard refer to a birth mom as that woman, or I don't want another woman in our lives, or, like they're not connected.
Right.
And so you also have to be willing to open your heart to a woman who is giving birth to your child, who is now connected to you forever and connected to that child forever. So that's another layer to look at as well.
Absolutely.
Now, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the favorite child. So you wrote a book about the favorite child, which I love. Do you think that there's always a favorite in a household with multiple children? You do. See, I agree. I am the favorite. No, I'm kidding. Funny little story. I have two sisters. They're twins, and I'm the oldest. And we always joke about who's the favorite child and this and that. I'm currently the favorite because I moved back to my hometown where my parents live and my sisters are not there. But me and my other sister bought the third sister a t-shirt that said, "I'm the favorite child," because we always joke, you're the favorite. So we bought her this t-shirt that said, "I'm the favorite child." And anyways, it just made me think of that. So you do think there's always a favorite child?
I mean, the only people who don't know that are the parents. In your case, is exactly the story. Everybody in the family, all the other kids know it.
Oh, that's funny. That was my next question. Do the kids always know that?
Right. So yeah, I do think that there is always a favorite child. And as I write in the book, sometimes being a favorite child is a good thing. And sometimes being a favorite child is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can mean entitlement in a way that is destructive for maybe that person, maybe for the people around them. If they grow up because of their being the favorite, they are entitled to whatever they want. And that kind of entitlement can often lead to some kinds of antisocial behaviors. On the other hand, being entitled truly gives people a sense of, I can do anything. I can accomplish anything. I can take on any challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was writing this book, I fell into some research on presidents. And as far back as I went, and at this moment in time, I don't remember exactly how far back I went. I know I went at least to FDR, and I think before that. presidents have a long line of being their mother's favorite child.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So,
Or their fathers, but it can be either. But they have a long line of history in our about that.
That's a question. In with married couples, is the favorite usually the same between both parents? Do you know?
No, you mean in a family? Do mother
Yeah,
and father each have?
with a
No,
mother
not
and father, or
necessarily.
two moms or two dads with
No,
two parents. Okay,
not necessarily.
not necessarily. Okay, is there any research to show that the majority of the time it is or it isn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
And I would be suspect. I mean, there's been a lot of research done recently about favoritism, but the research that I've read is a little bit limited and limiting, because I would suspect and does it matter is the other question. Often the powerful parent in the family, if there is one, being that person's favorite can have more weight than being the favorite to the parent that people perceive as less powerful.
Oh, wow.
But in general, in a family, there is a favorite child. Often that person is the parent who is the important parent, then will say, this is my favorite. It's interesting you bring that up in this moment in time, because I have found that people who have a biological child and then can have difficulty with pregnancies, they want a second child. I have found that often they're very concerned about, will I love a child that comes into my life a different way, differently?
Yeah.
Will one child or the other be favored based upon how they come into my life?
Yeah.
And that is a really tough question. And it's one that really does require a good amount of soul searching about kind of what feelings do the parents bring with them that would influence one child, either one child or the other, a child who is adopted, a child who is not, who would be the favored. There's no rhyme or reason to that.
And there's no research on that?
No.
That would be really interesting to me, because I think it could go both ways. I could make a case for both.
Yeah. I mean, I have seen it go both ways.
Yeah.
I've worked with some families where the birth child was born with birth defects, and the mothers did not want to go through a pregnancy again. They didn't want to run the risk.
Mm-hmm.
One family adopted a child. One family did not. And the feeling was that they had room in their family for another child. And the other family just said, we have the child, we love the child, and we don't want to ever feel that we have a favorite. And they couldn't imagine which way it would go, whether it be the child who was disabled or not.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So how can parents better hide who their favorite?
You don't want to hide it.
Really?
Oh no.
But what can that do to a child who knows they're not the favorite?
Well, so you and your sister bought a T-shirt for your third sister.
We were older at that point.
But you did it. And
yeah.
So you must have known it for a while, and you still loved your parents enough to move back to live close to them, and the family could laugh about it. They could joke about it.
Does the favorite change?
It can change. But I do want to say that secrets are the worst things in a family.
Yeah.
And
although does a parent really want to say you're my favorite child? I would think that could be very harmful.
It depends on what comes with the favoritism. If the favoritism, if the person who's the favorite is indulged all the time, then that has to be talked about. If the child who is the favorite doesn't have to do dishes after dinner like all the other kids do, that does have to be talked about.
Yeah, for sure.
There are no
Interesting.
secrets. I have had, I've, I was, when my book came out, I was on a panel, and there were some college students on the panel, and we were busy talking about favoritism in the family. And it was really interesting to me because the consensus of the panel was that if they were not the favorite child, the one who was, they either felt sorry for because there's more pressure to keep that role, and it inhibited the favorite child's, from living the kind of life they really wanted to live. So there was more pressure. Or the person who was the favorite was somebody who needed extra support, and the siblings were happy that their sibling got it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting in that panel. Many people were really relieved that they weren't the favorite.
Huh. I love that. Well, let's switch again as far as different family dynamics, because man, there's a lot of dynamics in a family.
Yep.
What do adoptive parents most overlook or underestimate about how adoption is going to impact the rest of their family and their relationships with the rest of their family?
I think that is in part a function of how the family was brought into the adoption cycle. I think that the more the family is brought into the adoption cycle, the more the issues can be talked about and worked out.
Mm-hmm.
In my book, I one example that comes to mind was a grandmother wanted to get the granddaughter who was adopted through foster care, was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and feel welcoming to this child, and has another 5-year-old or 6-year, a grandchild about the same age. And that grandchild loved a particular book. So grandma went out and bought this particular book for this child. The difference is that the child who was adopted, having been in foster care and had so many issues, had not been going to school regularly, didn't know her alphabet, opened this book and was horrified, and just went in the other room and cried and hid under a bed. And of course, the grandmother felt terrible about it. That wasn't her intention. But I think that the more that everybody in the family can know about who the child is, what the child's needs are, what traumas the child has come with, because kids that are adopted do come with traumas. Whether the trauma is being a 5-year-old who doesn't know the alphabet, or whether the trauma is having never really been attached to somebody in the way that a child needs to be attached in the first 3 years of life. So a child that we adopt comes with history. And I think it's terribly important that we know the parts of the history that are okay for family to need. I don't think we go around exposing everything. It's our child's
very important.
privacy and our privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But to at least let the family know enough to know, Johnny is coming into our family at 5 years old and doesn't know the alphabet. So Johnny is coming into the family and is emotionally younger. We have to give Johnny some space.
Big distinction there. Like, you don't have to tell their story. You have to share how they manifest in life.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, just simply like, I adopted another race. And with my immediate family, it's the first person of another race. So that changes the whole dynamic of the rest of your lineage, right? So
Right.
things like that. Or suddenly my immediate nuclear family celebrates different things than the rest of my family,
Right.
or brings in different foods into our holidays. So those are little shifts, but that could have a bigger trickle.
Totally. And I love that you bring up the question of a child of a different race, because I think that that's something that, as you put it so well, um, maybe your family's first exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny enough, I never thought about that when I
Hmm.
adopted a child of a different race. I never thought to myself, wow, moving forward, the Greenspan family is going to look different
Right.
than the trajectory it was on.
Right.
Now,
And different food.
right? Yeah. What advice do you have for adoptive parents dealing with family members or friends that are really negative or acting with, that just aren't a positive influence, or maybe say things like, I've heard of situations where it's your parent, right, who you love, and it's your parent, and yet they've made some comments around your child that is really inappropriate and really toxic. What do you do in those situations when you have friends and family members?
I think the first thing you do is defend your child and protect your child. You know where your allegiance is.
And
And
do you
it's
do that in front of your child if it happens, like in front of your child? Do you speak up right then and there?
oh, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that your child has to know that you, mom, are my defender.
Yeah, I agree.
And, if others in the family don't like it, well, that's too bad.
Mhm.
But I think absolutely if you have a child that you've adopted, your first responsibility is absolutely to that child. That child has seen enough cruelty in the world that the child does not need to be exposed to anything else.
Mhm. And then probably following up with your child and letting them know, we don't need to be in this situation again.
Yes.
You're my Yeah.
And I think the older the child, the more open and honest the conversation has to be.
Mhm. I think it's really important, once your child sees you standing up for them, to circle back with that child, no matter what the age, right? Because
Yes.
in an age appropriate way, to
Yes.
ask them, how did you feel about that? And do you think my reaction was appropriate? What would you have done? Or if you were me, or I don't know.
Well, I agree with you in theory, and it depends on what age the child is.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I think that if the child, I don't want to pick a particular age because children develop in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if a child is younger than 3, you still you'd still defend them and protect them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I think you have to be very careful that the conversation you have with a 3-year-old is age appropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
my granddaughter knows that her mother is adopted, and out of the clear blue at the age of 5, my granddaughter said to me, "Grandma, so that if my mom was adopted, that means that I'm an adopted grandchild. Isn't that cool? I wonder who else has an adopted grandchild." Okay. So I had to say to myself, well, what is my granddaughter saying to me?
Mm-hmm.
Is she opening up? Is she asking me if I love her as much as I love her mother?
Mm.
Is she asking me, do I love an adopted grandchild as much as one that is not adopted? Is she what does she want to know more about?
Mm.
And I have to be careful that I don't make an assumption
Yes.
that I know what she's looking for.
Yes.
I mean, that's the flip side. And it wasn't that somebody said something to her that I had to protect. It was her bringing it into her relationship with me.
Oh, that's so important. And I think with anyone, don't make an assumption you understand what the question is or what they're
Right.
getting to. Just keep asking more questions or tell
Right.
your truth. Yeah.
Right. A way that I ended the book, and the last sentence that I write in the book is, "The calling to adopt is a life's gift. I can't imagine my life if I hadn't followed that path. I'm a better person for it."
Mm.
And it is something I believe. And what I also write about in the book is that it took me a lot of years to be comfortable with my decision. And it wasn't one that I rushed into at all. And it's one that my husband really took a leadership role in, because he thought it would be good for us as a couple and that I would be a good mother. But it is a decision that came out of a lot of soul searching.
Mm.
And it was the right decision for us. I think a person who chooses not to adopt has to really look down the road into the future and say, when I'm 50, what will my life look like if I do not have children? If
Yeah.
it's 60, what will my life look like? Is that what I want my life to look like?
Yeah.
Because it has to be a decision either way that we live with.
And it still might not look the way you thought it would look.
For sure.
What led you to write The Calling to Adopt?
Couple of things. There was no book that I had access to, that I could refer my clients to, that I could reference when I was at that point in my life, that was only for the person, for the couple who wanted to adopt. There are books for birth mothers. There are books for bringing up children who have been adopted. There are books for kids. A book more similar to your book, that is for your book was about the journey.
Yeah, my book is about the journey. It's
Right.
nothing
My
like
book
yours.
is about the personal
Pre-journey.
process.
And the,
Right.
yeah.
Pre-journey. Right. Pre.
The pre.
And I couldn't find anything in the literature that was a book that encouraged people to soul search.
Yeah.
And to come up and to be truthful with why they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah, I love that.
So I wanted to fill that void. That was the major reason that I wrote the book. The second reason that I wrote the book is I really believe that raising any children is complicated business.
Mm-hmm.
Whether and raising adopted children has unique issues because of all of their issues of attachment, how they grow and how they are attached to parents and how they learn to trust.
Mm-hmm.
So in respecting the fact that you can't turn back on once you've made that decision, and once the judge has said this is final, I really wanted people to be as mindful of the decision as they could possibly be.
I love that. Now, you stated that the book tested every part of you and that it took longer than your dissertation because of its personal nature.
Right.
What surprised you the most? What did you learn in the process of writing?
Well, what surprised me the most was how much I wanted to not tell my children's story. And you can't write a book this personal without telling some of the story. I did not want to betray their privacy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to tell their story. And I had to do what I think is the most difficult for adoptive parents, which is to only tell their own story and not to worry about telling the story about the relationship.
Yeah.
My story impacts my relationship with my kids, but it is my story. And I had to work really hard, as I think all adoptive parents do, in separating out my story from the intertwined story of between my children and me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
I went through many, 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 many versions of it. And I finally said to myself, I can't ask my readers to be honest with themselves if I'm not showing my own honesty with my own self.
What did you learn?
Oh, I learned a lot about my relationship with my mother.
Mm.
I learned a lot about what my children taught me. I have two children who are very different. And I grew up very frightened of ever making a mistake, because in my family, a mistake wasn't tolerated. And one of my children is a great risk taker, and making a mistake just goes with being that child. And I really learned a lot about how, in parenting that child, that kind of backing up this person who is more a risk taker was really tough business for me.
Yeah.
And then I was able to see how that had impacted me throughout my life. It ended up feeling like a gift that I could see myself taking more risks.
The most difficult things usually are a gift, right?
You got it.
How can someone find the right therapist who truly gets adoption and the unique challenges of adoption? Because I think therapy and finding that right therapist is imperative.
Even among my colleagues who I have talked about issues of adoption repetitively, many of them have a hard time understanding the difficulties of attachment.
Mm.
And I think that as somebody goes into adoption, they have to be open to knowing something about the struggles of attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that is one question, or that is worthwhile exploring
Mm.
as you seek out a therapist. Second,
So whether or not they have experience with attachment.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
in their views of, I don't like sounding clinical, I work hard not to, but attachment disorders are very common, they're very complicated. And I
Okay.
think they have to really be curious about how a therapist views a strain on a relationship that interferes with attachment.
Okay.
So I think that looking for a therapist that really gets what attachment issues are is important. I think that a therapist who understands issues, and where you feel that the therapist understands your issues of loss, is very important. Because adoption is moving on. For some people, maybe they never ever contemplated having biological children.
Mm.
Okay. But even that is a statement somewhere in there of some kind of loss.
For sure.
So I think that a therapist who understands issues of loss, issues of attachment, and issues of uncertainty. If I adopt a child, the child is going to have it's going to be some mixture of their genes and my influence. And there is uncertainty in that.
Yeah. Now
So I think,
you
I'm
didn't
sorry.
say the word trauma, which surprises me.
Yeah, I didn't, because I think that the notion of trauma is, in the field of adoption, is a bit over talked about, overrated, because I think that a trauma is a more global term. I think that so often the trauma comes from attachment that hasn't gone well.
Ah,
And I'd rather speak to the attachment issues or the loss issues, both of which are traumatic. But I
right.
think that the trauma comes from, that's probably a better way of putting it. I think the trauma comes from the loss and the attachment issues.
Ah, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I
So
love
I
that.
think the trauma is the umbrella. I think that's maybe a better way. And I would rather piece it out a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that distinction. Dr. Ellen Weber Libby, how can people find your book? We will attach it, but is it on Amazon? We will
It's on
link it.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and it can also be obtained directly from the publisher, which is Balboa Press.
Awesome. And if people are you taking new clients? What if people want to get in touch with you?
If people want to get in touch with me, I would love for that. I am not seeing clients anymore.
Okay.
Um, I have retired from my clinical practice, and I am now kind of more involved in spreading the word in a more global way through writing and podcasts and things of that sort. But
Wonderful.
that's not to say I am not open and available to people who want to be in touch with me, and they can certainly they can certainly email me, and they can, and I do respond.
Awesome. Well, we will link all of that in the show notes. Before I let you go, I have a little quick fire round that I ask of all of our guests. The first question is a shout out. Give a shout out to one person or organization that's influenced your adoption journey or the work that you're doing in adoption.
My husband,
Oh, I love that. What's his name?
Hank.
Hank. What's one piece of advice you would like to share with adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents?
Do all the hard work and then ultimately go with your heart.
What's one thing you wish every adoptive parent knew before they brought their child home?
It's a lot of hard work, and it's incredibly gratifying.
Describe adoption in 3 words.
Opening my heart.
Adoption is not just a destination. It's a journey filled with love, resilience, and growth. Wherever you are on this roadmap, trust in your path, stay open to learning, and always lead with your heart. You already have everything you need to create a beautiful story for your family, and when the road takes unexpected detours, I'm here to help you navigate every turn along the adoption roadmap. Dr. Weber Libby, thank you so much for being here today. It was an honor, and you gave us lots of golden nuggets to think about.
Thank you. It's a pleasure having this conversation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, friends, that's a wrap for today's episode. What was your biggest takeaway today? If you found this conversation valuable, inspiring, or even just entertaining, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star rating and review. That's how more people find this show and how we spread education and support across the adoption community. Hit follow, leave a 5-star rating, and share this with someone who could use it. We drop a new episode every Wednesday morning. Catch you next time on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.